Right, so if there is one thing you can imagine Israel could do without right now, it is pesky human rights laws. After all, the people of Palestine are less than human in many of their eyes. The last thing such people want to be constantly reminded of is the fact their own racism and apartheid doesn't make them right here. God forbid. So how about they legislate to make it that way instead? Such is the dangerous road Israel appears to be on when standing up for human rights of Palestinians could be criminalised. And it's no exaggeration that this could be about to come to pass, as a particularly mad and nasty Israeli minister now wants to see the head of Israel's own human rights organisation, B'Tselem, arrested and prosecuted for aiding the enemy, and done so under a law that is punishable by lifetime imprisonment or even the death penalty. Human rights are now Hamas as well, it seems. Right, so what the heck is going on here now, Damo? Does Israel not have enough on its plate than to be taking chunks out of human rights campaigners in its ever-weakening justification of the ongoing war against Gaza? Well, you might be thinking that, or words to that effect. But apparently not. B'Tselem are now themselves in the sights of at least some in the Israeli government, Israel's own human rights campaign agency, as they are, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. Israelis actually concerned about the well-being and ill-treatment of Palestinians by their own nation. Proof as perhaps it needs saying that not all Israelis are hell-bent on the destruction and seizure of land that is not theirs. There are good ones who stand up for what is right and what is just. They just don't happen to be in government. All of this has come about since last Wednesday, when the director of B'Tselem, Yuli Novak, via video link, addressed the United Nations Security Council. Here's part of what she said. The full clip can be found via B'Tselem themselves on social media.
Since Israel was founded, its guiding logic has been to promote Jewish supremacy over the entire territory under its control. The current government's guidelines state that, quote, the Jewish people have an exclusive and unquestionable right to all parts of the land of Israel. In the criminal Hamas-led attack on October 7th, 1,200 Israelis were killed and 250 taken hostages. Since that day, I and every Israeli I know have been living in deep fear. Our government is cynically exploiting our collective trauma to violently advance its project of cementing Israel control over the entire land. To do that, it is waging war on the entire Palestinian people, committing war crimes almost daily. In Gaza, this has taken the form of expulsion, starvation, killing, and destruction on an unprecedented scale. This goes beyond revenge. Israel is using the opportunity to promote an ideological agenda, making Gaza inhabitable. As this council has been informed repeatedly, a vast part of Gaza's homes and infrastructures have been completely destroyed. By driving Palestinians out of entire areas and displacing millions, Israel is laying the groundwork for long-term control of Gaza that could lead to re-establishing Israeli settlements there. In the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, the government is exploiting the circumstances to create irreversible changes. Since October, Israeli forces have killed 640 Palestinians there, including at least 140 minors. Settlers are attacking Palestinians and carrying out pogroms in broad daylight with support from the government.
Condemnation not just of Israel for what she called enactment of Jewish supremacy, but also condemnation of the criminal act Hamas committed on the night of October 7th. She blames her government for cynically exploiting that, though, to wage war on the entirety of the Palestinian people. Actions in Gaza that goes beyond revenge, making Gaza uninhabitable, infrastructure destroyed, mass displacement, war crimes, all laying the groundwork for long-term occupation of Gaza, including the re-establishment of settlements. It was a damning statement. The rest is well worth hearing as well, laying out fact after fact without favouring Israel or Hamas, because ultimately it is the abuse of the people of Gaza that B'Tselem stand to highlight. Somebody in Israel, you imagine, has to. And in no way do they let Hamas off the hook either when they do that, be that now or when they were in government in Gaza, as They have been functionally since 2006, up until Gaza pretty much, as Yuli Novak said, got rendered uninhabitable in many places. That even-handedness, however, has still led to accusations. Not this time from the far right, though where exactly you position Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party in the Overton window these days is a matter of debate, I suppose, in and of itself. From a member of his own party, certainly this came from, though, that Novak is some sort of a traitor or enemy of the state based on the speech she gave to the UN Security Council. The offended Knesset member in question is a certain Revital Gottlieb, or Tali for short. She's featured in my content before. She made a big shouty speech aimed at her own government to not break the siege on Gaza that had begun on October 7th. She said at the time that, and for the government itself, if you decide to end the siege, to break the siege, it will be, in my opinion, a terrible decision, because without hunger and thirst amongst the Gazan population, we will not be able to recruit collaborators. We will not be able to recruit intelligence. We will not be able to bribe people with food, with drink, with medicine, in order to achieve intelligence. And we know that finding the hostages is a super important goal of the war. So if you broke the siege, don't give up and tell us, Biden, no. You need to explain your position. Israel does have that right to deny food and water to the people of Gaza. I'm sure Keir Starmer must be a big fan. It's not like he's ever apologised for saying as much, has he? We've still not forgotten, Keith. Anyway, in response to Yuli Novak's address to the UN Security Council, though, Gottlieb went off her head and issued this statement. The enemy from home, the supporter of terrorism and the one who helps the enemy during war, Yuli Novak, appeared at the UN Security Council debate on our abductees and helped the enemy during war by saying that Israel commits war crimes almost every day. In doing so, she not only aided the enemy during war, but seriously harmed our hostages held by Hamas and the chances of advancing their early release. As is known, the penalty for the crime of aiding the enemy during war is death or life imprisonment, as stipulated in Article 99 of the Penal Code. I will not stand by. On behalf of the citizens of the State of Israel and on behalf of IDF fighters or soldiers, I have just submitted to the Commissioner a demand to open an investigation under conditions of detention against Novak. Who needs enemies when you have Yuli Novak? She really is a peach, isn't she? Every day, Israel are committing war crimes. The plausible case of genocide found against them by the International Court of Justice, along with the declaration of Israel's occupation of the occupied Palestinian territories as illegal, pretty much nails on those colours, doesn't it? Speaking out against the atrocities committed by Israel, never mind holding Hamas's feet to the fire as well, notwithstanding. And Gottlieb wants the police involved, and Novak detained under Article 99 of the Penal Code, were found guilty of the crime she's being accused of here by Gottlieb. She faces a death penalty or life imprisonment. All for choosing to address the UN and speaking what is ostensibly the truth, as any non-Zionist would largely accept it to be at this point, 11 months into this genocide. To Gottlieb, though, that is tantamount to assisting the enemy at a time of war. Well, war is a bit of a stretch, because that requires two sides of equally armed combatants pretty much, and it's never been that, not when more than 40,000 innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed by Israel. And you have people like Israel's own President Isaac Herzog signing missiles and saying there is no such thing as a single innocent in Gaza, despite half the population being under 18. As for putting the hostages at risk, nobody has done that more than Israel itself has done. The refusal to meaningfully engage in a ceasefire to see these people return to their families over and over again, repeatedly now, having led a group of families now in America to ask Joe Biden to seek a unilateral solution with Hamas instead to see their family members freed and cut Israel out of negotiations entirely, because no longer are they believed that they are honest brokers for peace. It's not a slur to say Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want a ceasefire. It's truth. And he cares nothing for the hostages. It's fact. Gottlieb has gone on to say even more than this on the subject, as according to Middle East Eye, said Novak should be brought in for interrogation in detention conditions. But B'Tselem remained defiant in their commitment to upholding the human rights of the Palestinian people and continue to voice that from within Israel, as a spokesperson explained. Shay Parnes, a spokesperson for B'Tselem, told Middle East Eye that the organisation stood to protect human rights even when the Israeli government chooses to neglect its basic duty to protect its citizens and the subjects under its control. While the government chooses occupation and war over saving human lives and promotes a policy that is contrary to international law and the principles of justice and equality, we will continue to act on behalf of all those who suffer from violations of their rights. We will continue to fight for human dignity and freedom. Human rights are universal and non-negotiable. Much respect and solidarity to B'Tselem and Yuli Novak's courage to speak out against an unhinged Israeli government, which includes such deranged entities as Tali Gottlieb. For more on the corner Joe Biden is backed into on the matter of those Israeli hostages with American ties that I mentioned briefly a moment ago, and he really is in a hole over this, check out this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.